for this evening, and we're going to cover emergency services and police and fire this evening. And I'd like the order, if we could, be emergency services first, and then police and fire would be good. And I'm going to defer the discussion of questions for the public hearing to another meeting. So let's consider the minutes for the, what was it, the March 4 meeting. I think it was distributed by email. I'll give you a minute just to look at them. I did have a couple questions. I don't know whether anyone else has them as well. I'll give you a moment. Okay. I think I heard on the discussion at the very top, it's about the community development director. It's about the third, fourth comment down. We were talking about the Stevens estate. I had asked a question, how do you see the Stevens estate fit in with economic development, et cetera? And Eric said, great asset to the town. And I think I heard him say not something municipalities usually take on. Did you hear usually, anyone?
I wasn't here.
Okay. You did? Did you hear usually? Okay. Is that okay? Great. Okay. So we'll take out the, we'll put in municipalities, yes, and take out the should and put usually. Great. Other thing was the fourth line, fifth line from the bottom. I think we were talking about the IT director, replacement of the IT director, and Andrew was, our time manager, was saying, I believe that, he said, as of this date, there is no IT director, and I believe he said we are aggressively pursuing rather than progressively pursuing. Can we
Yes.
is it, you hear that? Great. Okay, good. Oh, right. Any other? Okay.
I move to accept the minutes of the March 4th meeting as amended. Second.
All in favor?
I'd say Posner.
Okay, great. Done. Great. Okay. Emergency services. Management. Evening.
What would you like to know? It's a status quo budget. The budget is a continuation of a couple of projects that were started last year. Number one, which is to re-outfit all of our volunteers in emergency management. And number two is also to update some of the radio equipment that they need replaced. And the third project is they've inherited what they'll tell you is a new Car 20, which was our former ambulance as a pass down. So they need to update and outfit that vehicle for their use.
So we are using our used vehicles in that department, which is great.
We don't use all of our used vehicles, but on certain exceptions we do.
We do.
Yes.
And so they have ambulance number 3?
Well, it's Car 20. Well, they have the old, when we bought a new ambulance and we took another ambulance out of service, so.
So they have that ambulance? And
Right, so their 20-year-old ambulance now is gone, or
Great.
will be soon gone, but it has been taken off the road.
And it has been? Okay.
Yes.
And so it's been dubbed now?
The new Car 20.
New Car 20?
The old Car 20 is off the road.
Okay, off the road. Great, wonderful. And they've upgraded the Stevens Estate Garage to...
Yes,
to-
so the Stevens Estate Garage is being used as a location to house the ambulance. It's sort of been a vagabond over the years. So they're doing some work in the garage to make it plug in things for their equipment, et cetera.
And this department is really entirely almost volunteer.
There
We
is
have-
just one sort of stipended person, that's it, that gets paid. Everybody else is a volunteer, that's correct.
So we have a part-time director.
I wouldn't exactly even call him part-time.
A
He's
fraction.
he's
Yeah.
as needed,
Yeah.
but he's usually more than accessible and available to us.
Great. Well, that is a wonderful effort that we have by these volunteers.
Solid group of volunteers.
Solid group of volunteers, and they, their job is to coordinate and partner with state and federal emergency agencies and
And provide assistance to both police and fire as needed.
as needed.
Correct.
All right. Any questions?
You know, I was just wondering, what year is the ambulance that they're taking now to be car 20?
That's the
The
new
new
car
one.
20 is a 2002.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I just had a quick question about training and education. So they partner with the police and the fire departments. Do they receive their, does he, or I don't know how many are on?
There's a
I'm
number
sorry.
of them.
Where are they getting their training and their
Well, there's
education? How are they trained? And
emergency
educated?
management is, in our former parlance, a civil defense. That's what it is. So they get that kind of training on responding, volunteering. They may do traffic control. They do support operations for police and fire. They don't really train with police and fire, our regular force,
Okay.
but they do have specialized classes because almost every municipality has an emergency management to some degree.
All right. So those are provided, like you say, all of the community.
It's regionalized. Sometimes it's federal training. Sometimes it's state. You know, MEMA, MEMA, FEMA.
Okay.
All the acronyms.
Thank you.
And this capital outlay, is that vehicle replacement? or
No,
what
no
is that?
vehicle replacement, because they only have that one vehicle. Basically, it's for, this year it'll be for outfitting the garage, and, you know, they'll need, like I said, plug-in stuff to recharge their equipment, et cetera, and the radios.
I see it's down a little. Any other questions? All right.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm still staying, so.
Okay.
I can't get rid of you that
All right. What else would you like to say?
You have police next.
Yes.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
I brought tonight with me is my two division commanders. They are Lieutenant Eric Folds and Lieutenant Charles Gray. Lieutenant Gray is in charge of all the uniform officers, and Lieutenant Folds is in charge of detectives, the school safety, the school resource officers, and criminal investigations of that we have federal and state agencies we deal with. I brought them today because they assisted with the financing going through the budget. I will be retiring in about a year or so, a little over a year, and these officers are as a backup to everything in the department. So that's why they're here to be with us today.
Passing along some institutional knowledge.
Yes.
All right, good.
I'm hoping they gain some institutional
Yes.
knowledge.
Right. Well, I was wondering, the reserve police officers,
We have reserve officers. We've always had reserve police officers, and the reserve officers are, they're like officers in training to supplement our police force when they're the precursors to becoming full-time police officers.
so these are part-timers?
These are part-timers. They have to go through a reserve academy. It's very strict, and they have to go through all the training of a real police officer, except the full academy. Currently, we have 4 officers in the police academy, the full-time academy, and they were reserve officers beforehand, and now we'll be replacing them.
I see, so they stepped from being reserve.
Reserve, that's,
academy, and now
right, they get to know the
they'll be coming
department.
on.
Some stay on. several months or several years before we have the opening. So we have a few of them, and we will have to be hiring some more to replace those officers. We have, through retirements, the full-time, we have, the reserves go to full-time, and the full-time replacing our retirees.
How many reserves do we have now?
Currently, we only have 2.
2. And is this training then mandated? Is this mandated?
It's all mandated by the Mass
Mandated.
Police Training Council, which is the state, and they go through an academy, a reserve academy. It's
Yep.
generally 18, 20 weeks, 20 weeks on one night a week and all day on Saturday. They do this on their own.
On their own?
Yes.
I see.
And then we have additional training. We do in-house training in the police department. We
As well.
have our own instructors.
What is the new Merrimack Valley Police Academy?
It's something we're very proud of. I'm on the board.
Okay.
Over the years, we've had a lot of problems getting our full-time officers, our recruit officers, into police academies. Sometimes we'd have to send them down to Boylston, Mass., Plymouth State Police Academy, and would be on a waiting list. And these reserve officers that we were trying to make full-time officers would stay as reserves when we really needed full-time officers, just to get them in an academy. So the area chiefs, including me, were approached by Northern Essex Community College, and they set up a program. We petitioned the state, the training council for the state, and we reached all the mandated needs in the 870 hours they'll have to go through. And there's currently, at Northern Essex, it started February 2nd, there are now 46 police officers, all local, so which makes it nice, too, because they'll know behavioral officers, they'll know the Andover, Methuen officers, all the area departments are currently there, and we have a say who can get there. And generally, if we fill this class with local officers from around the Merrimack Valley.
And this is the first class?
This is the first inauguration of the class. We hope to have another one in
Congratulations.
August, so we're very proud of it.
Police training in Massachusetts is governed by the Massachusetts Police Training Council, and there are only a limited number of certified academies. So when you wanted new officers to come on, you really had to wait for only 2 cycles in order to get police officers in the 26-week academy. So this actually expands the opportunity for local departments to now become certified more locally than, as the chief said, having to go to Boylston or anywhere else. Sometimes even the western part of the state, we'd have to put them up overnight because of the travel.
I see.
I have a question about that academy. So it already started, but isn't there a building being built over there?
Maybe in 3 years.
Okay.
That's where they're going to house it. If
Okay.
things go well, and things are looking very good.
So the thing, nonetheless, the academy started. Hopefully, it'll be in a new building in a few years.
Yes, but they figure maybe 3 years if things go right.
Yeah, that's
And we hope
great.
to have another academy in August, end of August, beginning of September, which
Great.
we hope we'll have officers in that. Our
Great.
reserve officers, I know reserve officers will go in that, fill their positions for our retirees.
I notice in the significant changes for this year, there was a negotiation with the Communication Officers Union that led to implement part-time communication officers, and that can work per diem, and I think that helped you out with your...
We have 9 communication officers. It's 100% fill for these officers because they cover the 2 per person per shift, 7 days a week in the 911 center. And then anytime someone sick, vacation, personal day, family leave, would have to get another, they'd have to work on overtime or what we call mandated shifts. They'd be working their 8-hour shifts, and if we can't replace them, they'd have to work 16 straight hours.
Is this the Manning?
Manning
the
situation.
Manning,
Well, no, it's not equivalent to police officer manning. It's just because,
It's another Manning.
well, it's because we need the slots filled.
Okay.
There's only 9. They work 4 and 2 schedule, so.
And you need 2.
And you always need 2.
And you need 2.
So
So this
any
is not-
vacation,
yeah.
sick,
All right.
personal time would have required overtime filling. This allows us to pay the call-in communications officers on a per diem rather than paying a premium for someone else coming in who then might be working 16 hours straight, et cetera. It's also a safety factor.
Safety factor, so it cuts your overtime.
Yes.
Very nice.
And is that why there's a bump in the part-time salaries?
Yes, it is.
That
'cause
large
we're-
bump, is that
To
what
keep
that?
their skills up, we're making them work 32 hours a month. So
Okay.
32
if we call them in
So you
on
want- Right, you don't
2
want them
months
to be
later,
dry
or
and
what
not have
street
done
was that?
anything, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so that's it,
they
that
have to keep up
explains
their
that
education.
948%
Yes.
increase. Okay, great.
So can you help me, there's one item that just seems, just a little clarification on, other charges and expenses. What typically falls into that category?
Yeah, you want to say, because.
Yeah. In past years, because I worked with the 2 lieutenants on the budget, in past years, we lumped a lot of miscellaneous stuff in other charges and expenses, and you see such a dramatic drop this year because we reallocated a lot of that stuff to the proper category in order to reflect properly. So sometimes training materials were purchased out of that. That's now reflected under training. So that's why you see a significant decrease. A lot of that amount was reshuffled to their proper location. Sort of the institutional knowledge we just talked about.
In the capital purchases, that,
No.
which is,
45,000.
yes, the 45,000 on that one. If that isn't for vehicles, what is it for?
No, this is for our communication center. If you remember, there was a fire in Lawrence, a mattress fire, and we knocked out our 911 center. And there's Verizon is our provider that performs the connectivity through copper wiring into the police station, and it's not fiber optic. So Verizon's getting out of that business, but if we stay with them, we could hire people to, this is with the police, this is with the fire department too, this is a joint effort. It's to revamp our communications center to have microwave and fiber optic attached to the town. And it's from the tower, water tower, to have a microwave communication so we can go right to the police station. This is phase 1. There's another phase next year. But we put it in there, so we never want to lose our 911 center. We lost all communications.
Is that when they had the fire under the bridge?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
And it was,
It melted the lines.
yeah. And we found out a lot of things happened at that time. There was generators that the Verizon hadn't provided for us. So if we go this route, we're going to be saving between the police and fire a minimum of $18,000 for our lease fees for this copper line that they are telling all other agencies they're going to be out of the business within 1 or 2 years. And you still have to pay us the $20,000, but it's up to you to get them fixed. So we'd have to hire outside vendors.
To get them fixed from
Yes.
the fire?
Right.
I see.
Well, it wasn't for the fire, for a case
In the
if they break
future.
down, if they break down. So the fire chief and I and IT, he's since left, and Public Works also, we've worked on this phase to get this done throughout the town on our fiber optic system.
I see. So this is phase 1 of how many?
2 phases.
Two phases.
Right.
Okay. So we'll find, this is phase 1, so we'll find something like kind next year.
Yes.
And then that part will be over.
Yes.
So you said that it's a fiber optic and a microwave, so is there a backup in there? It switches
It's
over to microwave?
the water tower is where we put the microwave. We have to have fiber optic. We have to pay for that. The town doesn't have that right now. We have to pay for it coming down from the tower to the police station.
Okay.
And then it'll hook up to the town line on Route 125.
Okay.
Well, that's, sorry about the fire, but.
Oh, it was, it
Well,
was.
you're supposed to have a problem.
We had no telephone service
Yeah, I remember that.
for 2.5 days.
2.5 days. I mean, well, so this is a good, reaction
Yes.
to it. It sounds like.
Now it's on us now.
Yeah,
May I ask a sensitive question?
of course.
Guns and ammo?
Excuse me?
Guns and ammo dropped a little bit. Can you explain the guns and ammo budget change, please?
The guns and ammo, I think
Notice I didn't say percentages or numbers.
It's what we need. It's sufficient for what we need in training, et cetera. Officers have to go to in-service training every year and have to qualify twice a year? Twice a year with their weapons. So a lot of this is practice ammo. It's not ammo that we actually use to shoot in the street during shifts.
So what happened that they dropped that much, though?
Yeah.
Last year, we purchased some weaponry, and we still have, we'd be doing some more. So it's like our rifles and that, so we don't really need.
So it was,
That was a bump up.
it was a bump up last year?
Right.
Okay.
And the cost of ammunition, again, has gone up, though, because,
55% decrease
yes, for this time it is.
for this year. So we
Because if
have-
you look at FY14 actuals, it was only $14,000. And then the big jump, as the chief said, in FY15.
So those were actually capital purchases. I mean, you're going to have those for a long time, those guns. They're really.
Yeah, correct.
they're-
Yep.
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Point taken.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably
I have a question. The NEMLEC, I looked it up online. I couldn't find it in the book, couldn't find it anywhere. Is that the Northeast Mass Law Enforcement Council?
Yes, it is.
Ooh, wow, first
Very
hit.
good.
Google really is a wonder, isn't
Been in
it?
the 1960s. It's a regional task force.
Okay.
63 member communities. We're very happy. North Andover is the communication center for all of them. We've done it for years, and as chief, when I took over, we kept it. In case there's a problem, we have the 62 other departments. We can use their resources if needed. It's like a mutual aid agreement.
Right.
So, God forbid, we had a situation in town, I can get their SWAT team here in 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
So,
I see.
So that is, the cost of that, when you say overtime, is that for people to
They
work
train.
on their, or, okay, to train to be
They
a
have
part
to-
of
they
that?
have to
Are
train
people-
once a month.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you
our
have
officers-
specific officers that train for that?
Right. And some, as part of this too is they train for, what they call STARS, School Threat Response System. It's, they train our officers in case something happens at one of our schools. And matter of fact, we have several officers that are part of this team that will go to other schools too if the situation, bomb scare, or if we have to get metal detectors, I can get them overnight here, to outfit all the doors and everything. And plus dozens of officers from other communities. We do in kind if it happens too, but we continually train, the chiefs meet once a month. There's a lot of federal grants they have with that too.
Yeah.
It's my assumption about special assessment for 4825. It's not a lot of money, but who manages that fund on behalf of NEMLEC?
It's, they have a business office, it's on the website. They have a business.
They have staff. They have paid staff that.
And there's an
not just the
executive
local
board of chiefs. There's an executive board of chiefs, and they have a secretarial staff and a director.
I see. The materials and supplies must be the flip side of another line item, but I think there's a,
Yes,
okay, so do
that
we,
was, yes, that's where they were.
is that where it was? Because we had $975 budgeted in 2015, and now we have $25,000.
That's part of the shuffling.
That's part of the shuffling from the other charges.
Right, in order to properly reflect what categories they should be in.
I see. What kind of materials and supplies? Just materials and supplies? Or?
It's a variety of things.
Chuck, you have?
It's everything from training materials, stuff around the station, sanitizer, prisoner meals, blankets for the cell block, all that sort of thing.
Prisoner meals,
Correct.
blankets for cell blocks. I see. Just a sanitizer. Okay. Housekeeping things.
Yes.
All right.
I have a question. I see that the K-9 budget has gone down. What's changed?
It has. We had 2 dogs. Last year, we had one in the Boston Academy, and we've had a bomb dog for quite a while. He retired on December 31st. But for a while there, during the changeover, we purchased a new dog from this current year's budget. He went to the Boston Academy. He's still there, learning drugs and explosives. But we only have 1 dog next year, so the medical expenses and all that is dropped because we don't have 2 dogs.
Do we need 2 dogs? Should we get another dog in the future?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've worked with the town manager on this. It's, again, this NEMLEC, they have dogs too, if we have to get a specialty dog. But my main concern is the dog we had before, if we have a lost child or a lost person with Alzheimer's or something like that, or psychological, which we do have quite often. They're in the woods. I want a dog that can search and find the person So before we had the bomb dog, I really didn't, that couldn't help me. And I didn't want to wait for calling Andover or Nemlik to send someone there. It's precious moments if we have a child lost.
I see that we're now conducting background checks on all applicants for liquor licenses.
Liquor licenses and other licenses in town.
Well, that's a good thing.
It is.
What is selective enforcement?
Selective enforcement, sometimes it's self-initiated or it's initiated by the supervisor in case we have problems down the mall, in some of our shopping centers. We think we have drug activity. That's where we put these officers. So, actually, it's like saturation.
It's for a targeted activity.
This is to help with our problem in town.
If we identify a problem, or a neighborhood identifies a problem, or a condo association, or apartment complex.
And we have cameras now at the Lawrence Municipal Airport
Yes, we do.
for
And
security
We
purposes.
have some other infrastructures in North Andover, at some of our the water treatment plant and things like that. There's also cameras, and the communications officers have been very good about monitoring them. It looks like NASA in the 911 center.
Okay, and this is the same technical setup that gives you the live feed to the school.
Yes, with that, still, there's some glitches still in that.
Oh, there are.
Yeah, we're working with the school department. It was the interim when the IT manager,
Yes.
had left, and we're just finishing that up. Our school resource officers have live cameras in their offices at two of the schools.
At two of the schools.
Yeah,
And so,
and what we have to get is finish the project to get them in our cruises and in our 911 center.
I see, so that's next.
That's
To
next.
get them in the cruises in the 911 zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that in budget somewhere?
No, that's working with the school department too. We're all set for it.
Got it.
We got everything.
Okay.
It's just a hookup.
Okay.
And I think when we get IT and schools, we get them back together again.
I read someplace that you have a program for North Andover High School Student Police Academy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
This has started several years ago that I introduced, but we generally, before we had the students come to the police department after school or in the evening, it was a student police academy to learn about the department. The officers sometimes donated some time, or it was paid time for teaching them things. But we found out what happened was a lot of the students, typical North Andover, they're in so many sports programs at school, and other programs, they really couldn't come to the station after hours because they had all these activities. So now we're integrated in the school. We teach it in the school. Actually, we're very lucky. We have one of our new woman officers who's a teacher, a certified teacher, before she came on with us, and now they get credit for it. So now they're teaching in the school, and our officers are going there, and these officers go down there and teach them too. But they get credit, so it goes it's during school hours.
Oh, so it's an elective.
It's an elective.
Oh, great.
And it's
Nice community outreach.
Yeah.
it's fantastic now.
Actually, it just strikes me that we were talking last week about how the middle school is the new high school, kind of how things have backed down. I'm wondering, maybe extending just a class or an introduction to that through the youth center, because that's really the gateway, in a good way, to a lot of activities in high school. And that might be a way to expend
Rick
that.
Gorman was in my office 2 weeks ago. We talked just about doing that.
Great, awesome.
Thank you.
I would like to step back a little bit. We've gone into some specific line items now with the three of you officers. That 2.5% year-over-year increase, and I'm not looking to increase or decrease budgets. I'm looking to have you say, it's good enough, or we wish we had more, or there are things that are absent here that had we more money, or we're just swimming in money, we don't need it all. I mean, honestly, I like to make sure that we're well taken care of in the police department, and oftentimes we say, oh, 2.5% is good enough, but is it?
Well, we looked at that also, because we knew what the money might be, but we worked, the three of us worked together. Would we want more money? Yeah, of course. But can our programs be sustained with this and work very closely? Yes. The three of us met with Ray, Lynn, and the town manager, and no, it was a very good interaction, and we can live with this budget. This budget will work for the police department.
Do you do anything sort of like you look for your objectives through the years you've listed out here, and you say, I'm able to meet these objectives, or you can put things in priority, or even a risk assessment of sorts, and just say, well, these things sort of fall off because I don't have the money?
It's, you know, people have heard this scenario from me before, but a lot of our officers are homegrown, come from North Andover, they have an ownership here, and I get so much extra out of these officers. These officers, these lieutenants, wear so many different hats. I mean, they do a lot of things. And, you know, the National Night Out, having them all there with the kids and the community, yeah, could we use a lot more money? Of course, but they do the job and they enjoy it. So I'm happy.
Finally, I just did a little back of the envelope math, and I think I might have done it correctly. Lynn can help me later on if I correct me. I just figured overtime as a percentage of salaries. Oh, okay.
We'll compare numbers.
Well, we'll compare numbers, all right. I was coming up, if I don't include if I include the dispatchers and their overtime, it looks like about, what, 13.3%?
Well, I came up with a little less because there's some things that sort of netted out, so I didn't even count those, but I came up between about 8%. But that's, again, there were some things that I saw here that seemed to offset each other, so I didn't even figure those in.
I see, well, I just did straight.
Yeah.
I just did the straight overtime on that.
Yeah.
And that seems, compared with a couple of years ago, when it was like 17%, that seems to be...
The part per diem, does that help?
Well,
with that?
a couple
You
of
would
things
think
help. Number one is full staffing.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very fortunate that we've had reserve officers that we could move into full-time slots, and the timing of academies. You're never right on par with what you need, but that's helped a lot. The per diem officers helped a lot. The fact that we have reserve officers who can fill slots allows us not to have to pay overtime to fill those same slots. So it's a combination of things. It's a combination of the management of the chief and his two lieutenants of the department and what's needed and not needed. Both public safety departments are given, this is my definition, very strict guidelines on overtime, and you know, it's not just an open purse for them to spend. So they've done both of them have done a terrific job. So it's a combination of factors that leads to that.
I see, so well, that has come down.
Yeah.
That percentage has come down over the last couple of years. So, anyone else?
I just have a general question. You know, I have a student in the middle school going into the high school, and I see Narcan, the training and everything with the drug enforcement. How effective, do you have tools to measure how effective your interventions in the schools are in regards to drugs? I mean, I know that's a wildly general question, but you know, it just seems like by the time you're getting to Narcan, you sort of miss the boat. And I'm not saying that you particularly, but you know, as a society, by the time we're talking about using Narcan and training our officers on it, we've missed a real opportunity to educate kids. So just curious where that falls out.
Well, we had the DARE program. I don't think that worked too well with us because it was just a class. There wasn't much interaction. Now we have two women school resource officers and a male, and there seems to be a lot more interaction now, whereas before it was just they were there to protect the school. Now there is a lot of meetings between the bullying, or if there is kind of some issues going on, they're like a member of the staff. So I think nowadays things are getting at least we're identifying the problems, working with the principals in that. It would surprisingly, a lot of the times the fire department, and we're there for using the Narcan, so people you wouldn't believe. It's just like the other chiefs, they've gone before their councils or their selectmen or the finance committees, and it's just such, people, they may be drinking in their house or anything, but sometimes these opiate problem, it's very cheap to buy it. We're next to a community that is one of the sources in the area. We're working on a task force for enforcement on that. My offices are in Lawrence. Lawrence is in North Andover. We're in Methuen. We work together. The chiefs have, it was very good with the academy, and we've been working together for a couple of years now, very closely. But it's a real problem.
So Narcan that you're referring to, this is a nasally administered?
Yes.
Overdose reversal agent?
Yes.
That you have all become trained
It's
in how to
phenomenal
administer?
how it happens. Someone you think has just passed away is up and get argumentative with us about they don't want to go in the ambulance.
So you're now prepared when you find someone trained to figure out
We're
what
trained that
is going wrong with
the
the
distributions
person.
will be happening, but the
Yeah,
fire
I
department has been have it for quite a while.
Oh.
But a lot of times we get there first because we're on the road. They have to respond from the stations, so that's why we want to be on board with this.
Good to know.
Do you teach about that in that elective class? I'm just curious. I mean, how
They-
into
they
that do you get with the high school kids?
We have a DEA agent that helps us. He comes in and he did a big thing for the middle school a couple of months ago. It was an assembly for, I think it was all this.
Yeah, my daughter doesn't tell me anything,
Okay.
so I have to ask you. I have to ask
Yeah.
the chief of police. Welcome to middle school.
But we
parents.
have a woman officer in the school. She's full-time there, but we have another officer now that will be going in on there, one of the younger officers, that's the teacher. And so she just started. I just finished her up on another program, so she can start teaching in the schools under the SRO umbrella. She just, a month ago, she graduated, so she's certified now. She was always certified as a teacher, but now she's certified as a school resource officer. So.
Well, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you for your services.
Opiate problem is really scary. You read about it everywhere, the opiate problem. I mean, it's just epidemic. It's
I didn't realize it was so bad.
Oh, it's horrible. It's really bad.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome.
Thank you.
So you have the run-up to getting installed in the new fire department building sometime later this year, maybe.
October.
October?
It's scheduled for completion in October. If you go by it, the steel is up, and next week they'll be pouring the floors, and then the walls will start going up, and so completion date is scheduled for end of September, beginning of October, so even if I give it a few weeks, fire department should be moving in there no later than mid-November.
Oh, that'll keep you busy over the summer then, I guess.
It'll be nice. It'll be long overdue.
Yes, indeed. Well, yeah, I see the crews working. They're even working on Saturdays sometimes, aren't they?
Occasionally, but those steel workers get a lot of credit for being up on those girders with 0-degree weather.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Just kind of a thought about when that opens. You're in the neighborhood of a number of our elementary schools, and I don't know whether there's been any discussion about, that's the one thing, I remember when my kids were in elementary school, the fire station, and certainly having a bright, shiny new fire station, what a great opportunity to really show that off to the kids, but really to the community, kind of through the schools. And I'm just thinking, that could be a great opportunity to coordinate that with the
Well,
district.
we traditionally, even now, for years gone in the past, have always welcomed kids, regardless of the group, to come to the two stations, whether it's Cub Scouts, school groups, classrooms, whatever they happen to be. And oftentimes, we would get outside communities come to our fire stations because those particular communities didn't have the same welcoming, if you will. So we've had kids coming forever to this one, and to Johnson Street in particular, because they'll go to the park across the street, and then they'll want to come over and see the trucks, and especially since the two newest trucks are up there right now, so.
And we do an annual open house, too, at the fire station, which will be a little bigger and better with a new station.
So let's talk about personnel costs. Maybe this is a question directed to Lynn and Ray.
Yep.
Typically, when you see growth in pay and salaries and personnel, that you expect other costs to go up. The fringe benefits in particular would go up commensurate, similar. And yet, holiday took off substantially more, greater than personnel cost went up. Can anyone help me with that one?
Well, the holiday pay is simple. We have we have contractual obligations. I'm sorry, the holiday pay is.
Yeah, I didn't know whether we had more holidays or.
No, it's just as.
Overtime to cover holidays?
No, this is strictly holiday pay. Firefighters receive. They don't get the day off if it's a holiday like we do. So they're paid extra in their paychecks for when a holiday falls. So as the force increases its seniority, that automatically goes up because you're up on your steps, et cetera.
So that's a contract item?
That's a contract
It's a
item.
contract item subject to steps. And,
Correct.
Yep, so it does that.
So it sort of is a form of, I was thinking of it as overtime, because it's kind of like they can't not be there, so they're being paid a premium. to
Yeah,
be
no.
So-
Well,
but
they
it's a
are being,
premium.
in
So,
essence, they
okay,
are
it's a
being paid a
premium.
premium, yes.
Yeah.
But even if I'm on my days off, I don't get another day off, so I get a smaller premium because I don't get, the typical 11, 12 holidays a year.
Okay.
And then for salaries, this includes a full-time deputy chief. In the current fiscal year, we have a half-time. Our goal was to put on a deputy chief in January. We're going through an assessment center, or soon to go through an assessment center. So this part of this, not only for steps of those officers who are not yet, firefighters who are not yet at max, it also includes a full-time salary of a deputy fire chief.
So we are up to 56 from 55 head count, I
We
guess.
will be, not yet.
We will be. So we're what, 55 and a half? Or?
Well, we don't have the
Somewhat.
deputy chief in place yet. So it will become it will be a domino effect. So
I see.
if we assume logic that a lieutenant will be promoted to deputy chief, a firefighter will be promoted to lieutenant, and then we will hire a new firefighter.
When does this happen?
Assessment center is
Assessment is
scheduled.
April 15th.
Right. Next month, we start our assessment center.
I see. All right. The sick time buyback is somebody retired in, is this a new line item then?
This is
Where
a
we're
new line
doing
item
something-
that was in the latest contract, which was one of the things we tried to do, not only to, a little bit of, and it's the same in the police department too, to save on overtime cost. We tried to encourage our public safety personnel not to take sick time. Sometimes there's a belief that if I get 15 sick days, those are just another 15 days off I could take. It's a method that's in the contract that allows them, if they don't use sick time, to buy back or be paid for some of the sick days that they don't use. So I think it's up to 3 days or 5 days. They can.
It's up to 3 days.
3 days.
3 days max if they
So
go down.
even paying firefighters 3 days straight pay saves us in overtime at a premium. So
I see, it's the
It's an incentive plan. It's an incentive plan, right.
So you're saving the overtime amount?
You're saving the overtime, correct.
Yes, on that.
Or you're saving the half-time on the time and a half.
Okay, all right, time and, because that would be
Right,
time and
the
a half
premium
overtime,
part of
so
the pay.
The premium part. Okay, so that's newly instituted, and will continue to be a line item then, I guess?
If it stays in the contract, yes, it will.
Okay. And when is the contract?
June 30th.
June, it's this contract?
All public safety contracts expire this June 30th.
This June 30th. And they are what, annual contracts, 3-year?
No, they're typically they are 3-year contracts. By state law, you can do up to a 3-year contract. Occasionally, they've been a single-year contract, or sometimes they've been a 1 and a 3 combined, but they're typically 3-year contracts.
And this one was a 3-year contract?
This one was a 3-year contract, correct.
So this is a biggie
Yes.
right now. Are we going to go for 3 years, or are we going to go for 1?
I
We
can't
don't
comment
know.
on collective bargaining
Okay.
strategy.
That was an inappropriate question, so sorry. Let's move on. Okay. The EMT people, are they part-time or are they full-time?
EMT is all of our firefighters, or EMTs.
Everybody.
Everybody's an EMT. It's a requirement.
Okay.
So that line item, is that a premium you pay to?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so why, I'm just curious, why is that broken out?
Well,
Just-
because it's a difference. You're either an assigned EMT or a non-assigned EMT.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you're assigned to the ambulance, you're an assigned EMT. So because you're doing EMT work almost on a full-time basis, your premium is higher than
Higher.
a non-assigned EMT. But everybody is a certified EMT.
Okay,
correct?
great.
Yeah. And it's paid off twice a year. It's not rolled into their weekly salaries or biweekly salaries.
Okay. Interesting. And contract services, I see there's no changes there, but being new to the committee, I'm curious, what kind of contract services does the fire department use? Just by way of example, so I can get my head around what that line item would
This would be when
mean.
we have the advanced life support units come in. We have an ambulance call, an EMS call, a medical call.
Okay,
And as a result, depending on the nature of call, dispatch has protocol on whether to call for the paramedic unit.
and that's not part of
And
our, that comes from an outside service?
We are not paramedics, we have basic,
Gotcha.
a BLS,
Okay.
basic life support. So a paramedic unit will either come out of the Lawrence General, or if all of their particular trucks are busy, depending on the section of town, I'll use either Middleton, or I may use a private ALS service, and then we have to pay them so much.
Okay.
And this also includes our ambulance billing service. So that's a contract we have in place
Oh, okay.
with a company that does our billing. So that's why it's consistent from last year to this year, or from this year to next year.
Training and education, just looking at it from the actual 2014 to 2016 recommended, that's quite an increase. I mean, we started out at, what? Wait a minute.
Training and education covers two items predominantly. One of which is, and they're both contractual, one of which is what's called a 21-hour additional education. A firefighter or a lieutenant can get, during the course of a year, 21 hours education, and that could be done going to a class somewhere, or that can be done over the computer. Once they do that, in the past, they used to get a $500 flat fee. Now, it's time and a half. So if it's time and a half for a firefighter, it's...
I think you're confusing that with academic pay.
With what?
That's academic pay. This is training and education. So this is
Yeah.
us sending people to train. It's not,
No, this is the 21 hours. This is
Is that
53,
is it?
2322, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And so a firefighter could get basically 700, lieutenant could get 900. So if I can sit in front of a computer for, say, 3 different days, pick up 21 hours, it's kind of fairly easy to do. So that's one facet of it. So contractually, it went, in the last contract, it went from 500 to that extra, to time and a half.
Oh, I see, it went from time to time and a half.
Right.
And that's why we have the 10,000 from 2014.
And that's just one
to
part of it.
34,000.
The second part of it
Yep.
is, that also includes individuals that continue their education in fire science. Most of them will go to North Shore College in Danvers, and that counts for the course, the books, and that type of thing.
That's for like arson investigations, that sort of thing? Arson investigations?
No, that's a separate.
That's a separate thing,
title.
okay. And how does that relate to academic pay? So how do those two connect?
Academic pay is that's contractual. Once you have achieved your so many credits, or you've achieved your associates, you get a certain amount of money. You've achieved a bachelor's, you get a certain amount of money. That also changed in this most recent, of the last contract.
There's a name for that, what is it?
I'm sorry?
There's a name for that?
For,
No, I know, I don't know.
you're thinking of the police, that's the police version.
That's
Okay,
not
so
a-
this is the
that's
fire
former
version
police
of the
version.
Quinn, yeah, okay.
You had me confused there, Karen, for a second.
Thank you. Yeah. Pay contract.
What's covered by fire alarm, Chief?
I'm sorry?
Fire alarm. What is that? The
Fire
line-
alarm,
line item
we
called
have,
fire alarm.
I have a group of individuals that work the fire alarm. They will, currently we have the master box system, so we have the lines over the telephone pole. We are going, and we're in the process of going, and by the time we move in this new station, we will totally change over to what's called a radio box system. There will be no more lines over the, connected to the poles. That's for these individuals, when there's a problem out there with the lines, or when now people are changing over from the master box to the radio box, and they have to go out and troubleshoot and make sure that the new system works. And that's for these individuals. Now, having said that, once the new system is in place, and the master box system, or the 100 mil system, as they call it, is no longer, then these individuals will also be taking the line downs off the poles. So that's,
So the cost in the expense section for 15,000, which is a decrease about $6,800 from the prior year, is that external material, or is that, I'm just going to making sure there's no confusion between people versus third party.
that's the
External.
materials.
Okay,
Right, people are only up in the top part.
that's right.
That's correct.
We were mixing things
Yep.
up there in the education part.
Yep.
I'd just like to make sure. Okay.
And the capital outlay, is it something that there was, we took something out of the capital budget last year for the SCBA? Do we have a
The
three-year?
capital, you're talking greater than 5,000?
Yeah, there was a three-year,
Okay, this year was the first year of the initial purchase. We're buying 8 new SCBA harnesses.
That's
New-
exactly what you're saying, yes.
Yeah.
okay,
The
that
new-
one, it was like 87,000 that got taken out of the
Well, that's part of
capital
it. That's just
and
part
put
of it.
into this budget,
Correct.
and this is year one of that
This is
87,000?
going to be year two.
This is going to be year two.
Two.
FY16 will be year two.
It would be year two, and that's why this amount has decreased a little bit by the amount of the first one. And that's to buy these, the bottles and the harnesses,
Self-contained breathing apparatus.
face masks, voice.
Well, this year will be the second year of the harnesses. We've already achieved the 3 years of the bottles. We bought 3 years' worth of new bottles, because after so many years, you can't hydro test them anymore. The second year of the harnesses this year, they're all the latest in NFPA standards. In addition to that, there's also monies for new voice emitters, which goes in the side of their SCBA face pieces. The voice emitters, so you can hear, they can talk in a fire scene. So that's the reason.
What do we do with the old harnesses?
The old harnesses, we still have them. We have the ability, we could trade them in, maybe, we could surplus them. It's difficult, because they're not, if they're way back to, say, the 2002 standards, it's awful hard to, liability purposes, to try and give them to someone, because they're not up to standards, so now you're saying to that particular group. I mean, they're still good for training and things of that nature, so.
Oh, for training, yeah. But it would seem like that would be a logical place to.
Like the bottles. The bottles we can still use for training. So,
And the protective equipment, that's not the SCBA stuff.
The protective equipment, we have an agreement, the town manager, myself, and the union. Each year, we will buy 9 sets of protective gear for the firefighters. Protective gear is about $2,100 a set. A set consists of a coat and the bunker pants. So that means essentially that no one will have gear older than 6 years old in the fire department. And that's something I think we can be pretty proud of. The other part of that is monies for helmets, gloves, suspenders when they break, what have you.
So that's non-SCBA
No, the
items.
SCBA is nothing.
That's something different. So this is the basic suit.
That's the
And
coat
then
and
the
pants,
harness
basically.
and all that stuff goes on top of it, yeah. Let's see. Oh, my pencil pushing. It looks as if when I back of the envelope again.
I was going to say, I sense an overtime question coming.
Yes, yes.
I could just see you were trying to figure out if yours and Liz's number were the same this time.
12 and a half, that's what I came up with.
You're right. Well, it's going down, which is good. I mean, what did you figure? You
I
figured?
came up with 12 and a half on this one, but I did it real quickly.
Ah, all right.
What'd you come up
That's probably close.
Well, it is, I was coming up with 19, I don't know what I did, but that was down from like 25% in fiscal 13. So that's significant.
What I had to say about the police department is even at a higher level in the fire department, in terms of the chief doing a good job of controlling his overtime expenses, monitoring them, every pay period, et cetera.
Any other questions?
Just a final question, Chief. You received $23,000 less than what you had originally requested because the town manager chose to think differently on the expenses.
For?
Well, it's a variety of different things, Chief. Like maintenance, for example, repairs and maintenance went from, or is that the one? Let's see.
Vehicle maintenance.
Vehicle maintenance went from 56 proposed to 51,000.
Well,
Is that
we work well together, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so he was just sort of fine tuning a little bit.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Chief. I think we're
Thank you
done.
all.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Anything else, Madam Chair?
No. Oh, I have one more question.
Yes.
And again, this is as a new person, so indulge me. What does announcement of retirement mean? And why is that a line? I see it in all these budgets, and I'm going, in a
Well,
lot of
it's actually
places it's
actually
zero.
blank.
yes, but,
Yeah. It's,
but I see there's one recommended,
Well,
so
it's-
is that what you were referring
Next year,
to?
I will have someone sitting next to me that...
Okay.
it's,
The town manager has
it's-
recommended
It's
some
blank
for-
for a reason, because we, announcement of retirement is, when someone announces their retirement, they receive a payoff depending on their years of service of unused sick time. So rather than have it affect a year-to-year comparison of budgets, especially police and fire, we have now backed that out, but we've left the line in there because the Finance Committee is used to seeing it. But you notice it's blank across the board. It's actually separated out because if all of a sudden we had 2 or 3 firefighters leaving this year, that may be a $65,000, $70,000 line item. So when you're trying to compare apples to apples from one year to the next, you don't want to have that impacting, sort of a la Tim question that, you've dropped $70,000, what happened?
Right.
That kind of stuff. So we've backed it out of both police and fire.
It's put into the public safety reserve.
It's under public safety reserve.
Okay.
There are mystifying.
But we'll get some institutional knowledge into you too after year one.
Thank you. it's almost embarrassing to have to ask, but, you know,
Nope,
it's,
it's all part of the process.
yeah. As a, you know, I kind of consider myself the average taxpayer person sitting here as my first year, so,
It's all part of the process.
well, thank you. That makes total
I
sense.
think that's it, and unless there's any other business, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
I second that.
All right. We are adjourned.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.